Now, Emah, let's
Yes.
start from the beginning.
Okay. Oh, can I say something before we start?
Kane.
I just want to say this. I am feeling very pleased about this whole thing because we have managed to connect with a lot of Israelites that we either didn't know or we really hadn't been connecting with over the years. And with this coming up, I feel that we have gotten in touch with a lot of people. We've got the participation of many of our family, our mishpacha, and I'm very pleased about that because that's always an issue. Oh, well, they're Jews, they're Israelites. First of all, I'm going to start right here.
Let's go, Emah.
First of all, we always understood and knew that we were Israelites. Those, people think we Jews. Some people call themselves that. Sometimes, if I'm explaining to an African American person, I don't even do this with white people, but if I will say, trying to explain who we are, I would say, yeah, we're Jewish. The only time we use that terminology. Because a lot of African American people have no understanding of anything beyond that.
Right.
But when you're talking to anybody else, we know full well we're Israelites. As a matter of fact, that's how we were taught in Commandment Keepers. Not only were we taught we were Israelites, we were taught we were African, black people, before the 60's. That's very important to know.
Right.
Do not ever forget that at the time that these people came about, in 1919, moving into the 1920s, etc., Garvey was very much in the community.
Right.
You see, Harlem, as I like to always let people know, was a state of mind. It wasn't just a place. So people understood very well. People identified with Africa, and we knew that Israel, the land of Israel, was in Northeast Africa.
Okay.
The teaching that went on in Commandment Keepers wasn't just pointing to Deuteronomy 28. Deuteronomy 28 was the beginning. Those people studied geography, history, etc., to connect the dots so that they were able to back it up.
Right.
So that's very important to understand. We knew. And when we say Africa, Africa had many names, but that's where we were most recently from.
Right.
Africa.
Right.
In other words, in the transatlantic slave trade. We understood all of that. We were taught all of that. Those people were brilliant. And I say, we talk about Rabbi Matthews, however, I call those people our elders of blessed memory because Rabbi Matthews did not do this by himself.
Absolutely.
A group of people came together of like mind, men and women. This is important to know because many of our teachers were women. And so they came together and developed this construct, I call it. They developed that construct. Once they found out who they were, then they had to decide how they were going to put this together to disseminate it.
Right.
That's why I call it a construct.
Right.
They put that construct together, how they were going to disseminate it to the people, and they used to actually, Rabbi Matthews, I don't have it in front of me, he talked about how he would work until his last drop of blood that our people be returned to their true heritage. So here it is. Once they understood who they were, they did some very phenomenal things, and I always like people to remember, with all the resources that we have today, we have to begin to understand what they did with little or nothing. The dues for those people were 50 cents, 75 cents, because they came through. They started in 1919, and they came through the Depression of the late 20s, 30s.
Right.
They came through. This is a period that they were building, and they continued to build all through this period when it was so difficult for our people. Well, through the Jim Crow period, when lynchings were happening and everything else, in the 40s and 50s, they just continued to build and grow and teach to anybody who wanted to know.
Right.
So, what do we believe? three. I can just stop right here, but I'll go a little further. I'm going to tell you what the three basic principles were for commandment keepers, Ethiopian Hebrew congregation. There's really three basic principles. First of all, knowledge of who you are as a human in relationship to the human family. Know who you are.
Right.
Secondly, the second thing is know who you are and your unique relationship to the divine intelligence of the universe.
Right.
And thirdly, how to live your life accordingly. How to live your life accordingly. In other words, live according to law.
Right.
And that is really usually anything that's really complex can be summed up very simply. Okay, so I summed it up. However, we moved to get to that point and to get people to that point.
Right.
So the construct consisted of how we would worship, and how we did our services, how we did the holy days. For example, Shabbat. So first of all, we always did Erev Shabbat.
Right.
Something that I used to love, because what used to happen at Erev Shabbat, like tonight, what would happen in all those congregations that they taught. Oh, I'm leaving out a point. Not only did they develop construct, but they eventually established a school, where they taught their own spiritual leaders, their rabbis, elders. Because here's what we did: we did rabbis, elders, and teachers. Basically, those were the three people who would graduate from that school.
Right.
So.
And what was the name of that school, Emah?
Hold on a minute. I'm having a senior moment here. The name of the school was, I got it written down. I told you I was going to write notes, but I didn't write notes. I'm going from the top of my head. It's the rabbinical. It was the rabbinical academy.
The rabbinical.
The Israelite rabbinical. Yeah. Hebrew. We always use Hebrew Israelite. I'll explain why that too. We always use Hebrew because that was the connection to Africa.
Right.
So they always use Ethiopian, which how they connected to Africa. And don't forget, Rabbi Ford had a particular affinity to Ethiopia, where he wound up going back and living out his life. He and his wife.
Right.
And establishing a school for the Ethiopians over there. So they always connected to what they used to call Palashin, Israel.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
And I like to tell people, a lot of people like to kind of make Rabbi Matthews and Rabbi Ford kind of sort of like, not a rivalry, but that was never the case.
Right.
But sometimes people like to present it like that. But the thing is, what people should understand, Rabbi Ford, if you understand about destiny, Rabbi Ford's destiny took him back to Africa. Right. He always wanted to Africa. He heeded the call of Margaret Garvey, but he also was the musical director of the Garvey movement.
Right. He wrote the song Ethiopia.
Yes. So he always had an affinity for Ethiopia. He wound up, and he wanted to go back, and he wound up going back and living out his life. The important thing to know with Rabbi Matthews is Rabbi Matthews' destiny kept him here. So that's why we're here.
That's right.
You understand what I'm saying? And that's very important to understand. So it's neither, it's not, Rabbi Ford was more aware because he went back to Africa. It wasn't about that. Right. It was just where his destiny took him. Right. And Rabbi Matthews was very, very dedicated to raising up the people here.
Emah, I've heard in some circles that Rabbi Ford was like a teacher to Rabbi Matthew. Is that true, or do you want to?
Well, Rabbi Ford. No, yes and no. Rabbi, you know what a mentor is?
Yes.
I would say he called him a mentor, not necessarily a teacher. Because Rabbi Matthews is the one who went on to the higher education in terms of this way. Okay, I want to tell you that. Okay? He's the one. As a matter of fact, there was a period in our history, this before I was born, when Rabbi Matthews was studying at the University of Berlin, Rabbi Ford oversaw commandment keepers. So that's another thing I need to tell you. Commandment keepers bet Abraham, which was Rabbi Ford's congregation that he established in 1925, and even in later days, that not that Shalom Horeb and Kol B'nai Israel, a lot of those members were interchangeable.
Right.
They started as commandment keepers, but some of them were Ben Abraham's members, and some of them in later years became not Horeb's members,
Right.
and also Kol B'nai Israel members. But all those are commandment keeper people.
Okay.
So keep that in mind. So I have to say yes and no to that, and try to be as honest as I can about it, because he was more like a colleague and a mentor than exactly his teacher. Some people feel it depends on how you look at it.
Right. Right.
Because I'm sure he might have introduced him to some things,
Right.
especially since he was so into the Garvey movement and stuff like that. But the Garvey movement, again, you know that the Garvey movement did not accept Judaism as their main faith.
Right.
And Garvey did that for a reason.
Right.
You know what I mean? He actually said they would have no religion.
Right.
In terms of, organized religion, that was.
Right.
So, so I think people might think that Rabbi Ford was more Afro, I don't like to say Afrocentric, African-centered, but I don't think he wasn't.
Right.
He was absolutely not. It's just the way he approached life and what he thought. Rabbi Matthews didn't think it was necessary to, like I said, to go back to Africa.
Okay. Yeah,
He didn't
because
think
I could imagine that he would say something like, then what happened to the people in this captivity? Are we going to just forget them?
Well, that was exactly his thinking.
Right.
Like I said, his destiny was to raise up these people.
Right.
And then another thing he used to say all the time, because a lot of people like to talk about Rebbe Mess, but they never heard his words.
Right.
One of the things he used to always say, he said, the Most High promised us anywhere. He didn't feel a need to go back to Africa. These are his exact words, because he always said, the Most High promised wherever you set your foot would be yours. These were actually a quote from him.
Right.
You see, that was actually a quote for Rabbi Matthews.
Okay.
So, having said that, I hope that clears up things a little bit.
Yes,
Rabbi Snecker, he had a Snecker from Ethiopia. Rabbi Ford arranged that.
All right. What is that? Can you repeat that word?
Your Snecker is like your degree, your rabbinical degree.
Okay.
It's like your rabbinical paper.
Okay, your rabbinical paper. Okay.
Yes, and everybody who came out of the Hebrew Israelite college were legitimate. Once they established their college because of his papers,
right,
they were legitimate, so that you could marry people legitimately and do whatever things that spiritual leaders do.
Right.
A lot of people nowadays are spiritual leaders, but don't have the papers won't stand up in the court.
In the courts, right.
The papers, people coming out of that school, their papers stood up in the court.
Right.
Okay, that's important to know.
Right.
These are things I know.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because my father came out of that school.
Okay.
Okay, Rabbi Samuels came out of that school. So that's kind of how it went. So I want to get back to some things. Now we we were establishing a leadership that consisted of the rabbis, the elders, and teachers. Okay,
right.
that were to lead the community forward. Okay, they would be our leaders. So we established our own leaders. Okay,
right.
The elders were very important too. The elders were really, really. They tried to structure the elders that they really had some authority in the organization.
Right.
And we don't talk about Rabbi Matthew's daughter enough. She was actually a regular school teacher, a public school teacher, but she also was one of the primary teachers in. She was her father's right-hand person in many ways.
Right.
She helped hold things together. Florence, that's Rabbi Door's mother. She was named after her mother. And her name was Florence Matthews Door. And she always I always have to mention her. she just died at such a young age. She had an asthma attack. Came home from school one day working.
Oh, wow.
Just passed away. Yes, a year before Rabbi in 1972.
Ooh.
Oh, that was really something that was very tragic. But it kind of took something out of him too, because he and his daughter were so close. He had 4 children. He had his oldest son, who was named after him, Arthur, who was born in the islands, who came here with him, he and his wife.
Right.
And the young son came here together. Then Florence and her brother Joseph and Sammy, they were all born here.
All born.
And they all lived in Harlem.
Right.
Until the end.
What island did that the chief rabbi came from?
St. Kitts.
St. Kitts. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
St. Kitts.
So, okay, but his background was African.
Okay.
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 Now, I don't, like I said, I told you I was going to write some notes, which I didn't.
Right.
But you're going to have to kind of lead me in the conversation, because as I speak, I remember.
Right. So in terms of Rabbi Matthew, did he? I don't know if you will notice, did he always have knowledge that he was an Israelite, or did he come from maybe being like from Christianity and then somewhere along the line? Okay.
He did, and that's something we never hide that.
Right.
We never hide that. Yes, he did. As a matter of fact, they were Hebrew Pentecostal.
Hebrew Pentecostal. Okay. So
yes,
he had some idea.
Right. That's why the transition was so easy.
Right.
They were Hebrew Pentecostal. Marvin Gaye's people were that too,
Oh, his father, right.
Yeah, but they stayed in Christianity.
Okay.
But the original name of Commandment Keepers was Commandment Keepers Ethiopian Hebrew Congregation Faith of Jesus Christ.
Right.
See, here's what that was about. Let me tell you what that was about. That was their hook.
Right.
They had to let the people know when they started teaching early on that, and Rabbi used to say this throughout the years, if you say you follow Jesus Christ, you would be following him right into the synagogue, because that's who Jesus was.
Right.
This is what's his word. So yes, originally, because sometimes people whisper about that. Well, we were taught early on, because I was born in that congregation, born and raised in that congregation, and taught by some brilliant people. And so we were always taught, we don't need to lie about that. That was part of it. That was part of Shuvah. That was part of our coming out of the darkness into the light. So yes, absolutely, they were Hebrew Pentecostals. We never lie about the people who lie about us. Really don't understand.
Right.
They don't understand what that was about.
I have another question for you. The man that's known as Abba Bibbin or Pop Bibbins.
I'm gonna tell you about Pop Bibbins.
Yeah, was he a member, or did he frequent Commandment Keeper?
They were early Commandment Keepers, because nobody really had that going on in Harlem but us.
Right.
You understand? So Pop Bibbins, Abba Bibbins, as a child growing up, I used to say, because they taught us to be respectful, Rabbi Bibbins, but in my later years, I think he never came through the college.
Right.
I think that he learned some things, but he never graduated. He never got taken. So nowadays, I call him Elder Bibbins.
Elder Bibbins, okay.
Yes, that's him, Elder Bibbins. And it's something about that went on with Elder Bibbins, why he kind of dropped off, that I will not talk about on the phone, because everybody's listening to this.
Okay.
And I don't want in any way to kind of diminish him.
Okay.
Okay? And I would, because there's certain things I know that I would not say. But I call him Elder Bibbins now. As a child, though, I kind of tended to say Rabbi Bibbins, but no, I don't think he ever graduated.
He ever graduated.
But they actually graduated. They actually, okay?
Right, but he actually was there. You remember seeing him.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely, he was part of Commandment Keepers, yes.
Okay.
Now, I don't know what he knew before he contacted Commandment Keepers.
Right.
I don't know what, I'm not going to say that.
Right,
I was a child or even not born when he first contacted them. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just trying to show that there was some type of unity or some type of
Absolutely there was.
Yeah.
Absolutely there was. And I heard as a little child, children can be nosy sometimes.
Right.
And they probably having a conversation about Elder Bibbins once. in terms of him having fallen off.
Right.
Okay, and that's what I will not share.
Emah, I have another question. Did the rabbi ever aspire to get acceptance from the European community?
That is a good question again. And another thing, like I said, we don't try to hide anything.
Right.
But first of all, we don't, because we know who we are.
Right.
So we don't try to lie about who we are.
Right.
What happened with that situation? Rabbi Block was a good friend. He's a European Jew.
Right.
He was so impressed with Rabbi, and he really had a genuine affection for Rabbi Matthew. They became friends. He is the one who wanted Rabbi. He said, he used to tell him, he said, "You the real deal. You need to apply for the Jewish Board of Rabbis, because you should be a part of that," etc., etc. After much cajoling and trying to get Rabbi, and this is an absolute true story, after much cajoling and pushing and trying to get him to become, not to leave our situation aside, but to try to get him to be part of a larger body.
Right.
He convinced Rabbi to apply, fill out the whatever papers and whatever.
Right.
And Rabbi did it. And they rejected him.
Right.
And Rabbi was so pissed off because he said, "I never should have done that in the first place."
Right.
Even though Rabbi Block thought that he was worthy of being part of them.
Right.
Being part of not them, but being part of the Jewish, because what happens, a lot of benefits would come with that.
Right.
And they actually rejected him, and he was just really annoyed with himself for even doing that. Right. So yes, if that's
he went against his better judgment.
He went against his better judgment, and I know that's whispered too, and people take that all out of context because they don't know. And when people don't know, people say all kind of things.
Right.
But that's how that came about. That's how that began. That's how that ended. And Rabbi continued, and they continue to be friends.
Okay. And in his teaching, did Rabbi absolutely teach that the children of Israel were people of color? How was his teaching about that?
Well, I just said that. If I'm relating to, we knew that was Northeast Africa. We knew that we were African.
Right, that we were Africans. Okay.
Yeah, we knew we were Africans.
Right.
And we still know it.
Right.
And that's one of the things I explained to you early on, that they studied geography and they studied history, world history, and people's place in history. That's how they came up with their construct.
Okay.
So they knew who they were. We knew who we were more than some of these people running around here calling themselves Israelites did. We knew who we were. That's how they taught.
What were your most what are your earliest memories of commandment keepers and the people in there, and your earliest memories, because you were born there? I don't know if you care to share your age with.
I was born, but I remember, I can share my age. I have no problem. I told you earlier, I used to, at one point I would not tell my age, but when I hit 70, I do.
Right.
Because I'm saying thank you, Most High. But yeah, I was born there. I can remember back till I was 3 or 4 years old, and I'll tell you why. How I remember that so well. They taught, as soon as you could speak, they start teaching you the language.
Right.
And I remember I couldn't tie my shoes, but I knew my alphabet. So that's my early memory.
Right.
And I remember one time I was in front of the temple, and and the reason why I have such a good memory of that is I was feeling frustrated because I couldn't tie my shoe, and my father called me in because some European Jews had passed by, and he called me in to read to the alphabet. I could do the whole chart, and I was like 3 or 4 years old. Okay. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So that's one. I don't know if that's what you mean, but that's one of my early memories.
Your early? No, that's absolutely what I mean. And what was the atmosphere like let's say on a Shabbat, like you said, Erev Shabbat, but on the Shabbat day, actually the morning.
Okay.
Like how many people did you see at Commandment Keepers? Like, was it a congregation that held? Like, how many people at one time, and did you see it at capacity?
We were huge. We were huge, and not just huge from a small child viewpoint. At what point commandment keepers boasted around 500 people
Oof.
Membership.
Right.
We always had small places until we got to 1 West 123rd Street. I'm
Right.
not going to discuss that, though, because that's political, and I want to be coming up on the centennial. I want to stay positive,
Okay, I hear you.
okay? Because you know some of the
Right.
background of that. And
Right.
that's going to be for another time, and I will talk about it
Okay.
another time, but not as we're coming up on the centennial,
Okay.
okay?
Okay.
But yeah, so we were a large congregation. Yes, we were. That's why I guess we could do things with 50 cents and 75. They, not we,
Right.
with such a small dues they paid.
Right.
You know, because the people were poor. The people were poor. But the people, what I remember, let me talk, I was going to tell you about Erev Shabbat. I want to tell you about Erev Shabbat first because Erev Shabbat was also very beautiful. Because Erev Shabbat, you would always, first of all, they would light the candle and they would burn the incense. So you walking into whatever building we were in, that just automatically put you into a zone.
Right.
And they would always do the Erev Shabbat Sabbath. And I always remember my father saying, Ba'ikalo, that's come on bride. They
Right.
used to say, come and meet the Shabbat.
Okay.
That's how they used to inaugurate Erev Shabbat.
Right.
Then I remember that's one of the early beautiful memories I have.
Right.
Those smells and those prayers.
Right.
And then on Shabbat, we did Shachari and Mincha and Mara. Shachari obviously is the early morning prayers, right?
Right.
The Mincha is when they get into the service. That's like kind of mid morning, and they get into the Torah service. And I'm going to share. Should I share a little bit about the Torah service with you?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, okay, Torah. Let me tell you how Torah service went. Torah service went. First of all, you had to know your Hebrew name and your tribe. Your name might have been James, but you had to know your Hebrew name. Okay, that's what you were taught. Yeah, that's what you were taught, and your tribe. Okay, you were taught
Right.
your tribe. The men, there was a group of men who would consult and tell you what tribe you were. Like, for example, I'm Yehuda, and my father's Yehuda, and Rabbi is Yehuda.
Right.
You know, a lot of people say Rabbi was Levi. Rabbi's not Levi.
Rabbi Matthew
Okay,
was
Rabbi-
Judah.
Yeah, Rabbi Hebrew's name was Yosef Moshe Yehuda. That was his Hebrew name.
Repeat that name again.
Yosef Moshe Yehuda.
Okay.
Ben Yehuda.
All right.
Okay, so we were all, my father, him, we were all Yehuda. Rabbi Smalls was Levi.
Okay.
So a lot of people think because Rabbi Matthews was the leader that he was Levi. No, he was not Levi. He never claimed Levi. But you had to know your tribe to approach the Torah. Okay, I'm going to give you Shabbat morning. You had to know your tribe to approach Torah. You had to know your Hebrew name and your tribe
Right.
to approach Torah. And what would happen when they would begin Torah service and you wanted, somebody was making a aliyah, and that means to approach, to make the prayers over the Torah or read the Torah itself.
Right.
Rabbi would call you out in Hebrew. He wouldn't call you by your name. He would ask you in Hebrew what your name was.
Right.
And you had to respond in Hebrew. Like, for example, I think I told you earlier, my father would have said, Shemei Et, Lamech, Ben Shmuel, that's our family name, Ben Shmuel, Ben Yehuda, Ben Yisrael, and all the way to Noah. They would have to identify themselves.
Oh, wow.
With their tribe and their name. And then they would approach the Torah to make the aliyah. But while you were approaching, Rabbi would ask you in Hebrew, who are you?
Right.
And you had to respond who you were in Hebrew.
Mm.
And then you can approach the Torah and either just make the aliyah or read.
Okay.
And that's how that went. And that, even for children, that was a very riveting part of the service.
Okay.
And Rabbi's voice was so big and strong.
Right.
And when he asked you that, I mean, it was just really so deep. When he would ask you as the men approached, and he would ask you, who was it approaching the door?
Right.
And you would have to say back to him in Hebrew who you were.
Now,
okay, you had to be circumcised long before you got to any of that. And as I said, you had to have been given
Right.
the Hebrew name in your tribe.
Okay.
So continue.
Um.
And then after Torah service, of course, we would have our break. We'd be in synagogue all day, just like you guys.
Right.
You'd have your break, and you'd eat, and you'd do whatever we did. Sometimes there'd be classes. And then in the evening, you would come back from Minka Myers. Evening service. Now, what Rabbi had constructed, they had constructed a whole song service
Right.
around evening service, a whole song service, and that would be part of the evening service, and that would be your day.
Mm.
Okay, well, so that, and I'm going to tell you something about some of the holy days. I'm going to tell you real briefly.
Yes.
I'm just going to name
Please
a few.
do.
Okay, I'm going to talk about, of course, the Passover.
Right.
We get it on what community status.
Right.
We always have Passover in our place of worship.
Absolutely.
So when we were there, that would be real exciting. Rabbi would help cook. Rabbi could do a lot of things. I want to talk a minute about some of the things he did. First of all, he had carpentry skills. And the Aaron Kodesh, where we housed our Torah, he actually made that. Beautiful.
Wow. The ark. He built the
ark.
ark.
The ark. He built the ark.
Wow.
He actually built it with his own hands. He also could paint. So what he would do, he also painted the windows wherever we were. He painted the windows. He painted the windows, and in the last place we were, the doors.
Right.
And in bright colors. And here's what he said about that. He had like the yellow and blue and colors like that. He said the reason why he put those colors, he said, because people who would come be unfamiliar with the neighborhood, they can recognize that this was an African synagogue by the colors.
Right.
So that's why he painted those windows and things in those type of colors.
Okay.
So that they could recognize it from that.
Okay.
You see. So I was telling you about he should do a lot of things. So he would oversee the cooking for and help cook for Pesach. And here's what we would do: we would have a Pesach, and then the week of Chag Matzah was so exciting, and I can remember that even as a child. So here's what would happen on that week: the first day of Chag Matzah, they would have a variety of food. And they call it Feast of Unleavened.
Right.
So a lot of foods that we would have to eat, we would be allowed to eat during that week.
Right.
So you would learn that way. They had a lot of ways to teach you. And so you would learn that way. So we had a lot of different foods that we knew that we could eat during the week of Pesach.
Right.
On that, it would be like a lot of food, a big feast, okay? And almost the whole week of Chag Matzah, there would be something going on. There would be classes and things of that nature going on. The birthday, they would meet with the women, a class with the women that Rabbi would oversee, and then there would be a class with nothing but the men. And then you had to be, a girl, for example, would have had to have begun her menstrual before she could come into that particular class, because that class was specifically for the women.
Right.
So once you came to that point, you were allowed to come in that class, and you'd be so excited when you become a girl, when you were a girl, to be able to find out what the grown people were talking about. Yeah, that's about. I mean, they were no joke. Right. You would be so excited to know what the grown people were talking about. Right. When you were allowed to come in that class, and that's kind of how the whole week went, teaching and meetings and stuff. The whole week of Chag Matzah, so it kept the people very much connected, and involved. That was how Pesach went. I'm going to tell you how Sukkot went, for example, because that was another exciting holiday for the children. And that holiday, what the men and the boys would go out, and they would collect branches, and bring them into the temple, and they would hang them.
We still do that today.
You still do that? Okay, yeah. They would hang the branches in the synagogue, and then we would we had a table in the front with all the fruit and produce and everything, and then they would hang certain things on the branches. Oh, beautiful. I think that's a beautiful thing. That's exciting.
Yeah, we still
So that's what we did. That was so just to name two of the holidays that was so memorable, as a child coming up.
And can you tell me about when you said that Rabbi he was sick, and he was, it was the year prior to him passing away, which was 1972.
I'm sorry, you breaking up a little bit.
No, I said, you told me a story earlier about Rabbi being sick and still being able
Yeah,
to
yeah,
function
the year
and do
before he
his
passed away.
right, right,
What they used to do, oh yeah, on Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur was very austere. And I'm going to tell you something else about Yom Kippur. Commandment keepers did not fast for children.
okay,
They did not. You had at a certain time during Yom Kippur. Let me just say this and get this out of the way. During Yom Kippur, at a certain time, the children under a certain age were taken downstairs to get their soup. Because they would start off, we would always start off with this, oh, their soup was fabulous too. They
right,
would be taken downstairs they would be in service.
right,
At a certain time, they would be taken down to eat.
right.
And they would eat their soup in their collar before, before before service
Sundown.
was ended.
Right,
Okay? So that's what they did not fast children.
right,
Children didn't fast on up until they didn't completely fast a full day until they had reached a particular age.
right.
Okay?
Okay,
And so anyway, but all day, Rabbi Small, and whichever associate rabbis, and we were always talking about rabbis, but there was associate rabbis there who would be helping out with service,
right,
even with Shabbat and everything else. And what they would do is they would stay up on that beamer, except maybe go into the bathroom or something,
right,
all day fasting and praying. I said, when I think about it now, I say, my God, what strength and what dedication and what commitment.
right,
And we would be in the women and the men set separately,
right,
and our section was in the back.
right.
And we'd be back there, and we'd fall asleep and wake up, and they still praying.
Wow.
Yeah, just a big listen. I have nothing but listen. I owe my life as I have lived it to that.
Right,
To having been born into that, for having come in the world, knowing who I was, knowing that I was part. Because a lot of people call up our Israelites, they don't know Jacob was one family that became a nation.
Shalom, shalom. Hold on. Let me just. Right. Shalom, shalom. Shalom. Hold on for a second. Don't hang up, Emah. Hello?
No sound, Chief.
Yeah, I'm trying to reestablish it right now.
Go.
All right.
Ta-da.
All right, shalom.
Shalom, shalom.
Hello?
You're
Yeah.
not talking to me, are you? I'm here.
Yeah, I'm talking to you, Emah. I think I reestablished it. Just let me make sure that everything is good. All right. I just want to make sure that can everybody hear us? If you could hear me and Emah, Judith, can you please just give us a 1? If you could hear us both. Emah, Judith, can you speak to into the microphone and can you continue about the rabbi?
Okay, I'll continue. I was talking about Rabbi Yirmiyahu. I'm talking about the first string of those rabbis, Rabbi Yirmiyahu Yisrael, Rabbi McLeod, who established with Rabbi Yirmiyahu Yisrael, called B'nai Yisrael in Harlem,
Right.
before Rabbi Yisrael went to Brooklyn. Rabbi McLeod and his whole family. And Rabbi
Who is Rabbi Yisrael? Rabbi Yisrael is
Yirmiyahu.
Okay, so he was
That's
was originally known as Rabbi Wilkins.
That's his name, yes. That's his name he was born with.
Right, he was born with, but his Hebrew name was Yirmiyahu Yisrael.
Yisrael,
Okay,
exactly.
Gotcha.
Of Benny Adad in Brooklyn.
Benny
He
Adad.
went to Brooklyn, but he had worked initially, because a lot of those rabbis kind of paired off,
Right.
paired up.
Right.
So he had worked initially with Rabbi McLeod in called B'nai Yisrael in Harlem before he went to Brooklyn.
Okay.
Okay, so Rabbi McLeod, I mentioned him, Rabbi Yirmiyahu, Rabbi Samuels, of course, Rabbi
That's your
Dorset,
father.
Rabbi Moses, who a lot of people felt he favored Rabbi Matthew,
Right.
Rabbi Marshall.
Right.
There's some I can think of top of my head. I could not ever forget Rabbi Reuben from Chicago. Okay,
Rabbi
and
Reuben.
Elder Gray.
Okay.
Elder Gray from Cincinnati, Ohio. Oh, Youngstown. No, he was Youngstown, but he taught people from Cincinnati, Ohio. Elder Gray, somebody Rabbi Matthews was very fond of, and who was
Elder
very
Gray.
committed to the organization.
That might be where some of the connection. You're connecting dots now, because you're talking about Cincinnati, Ohio.
Yes, that's Rabbi Elder Gray. Don't ever forget that name.
Right.
He was an elder. He wasn't a rabbi, but he did some teaching out there.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
So those are some of the people I can just think of right now.
And in Chicago, you said the name of the rabbi was Rabbi Reuben?
No, Rabbi Reuben.
Okay.
That came directly, and then none of the rest of them came directly from Rabbi Matthew.
Right.
Rabbi Reuben. Remember that name.
Okay.
And I had the honor of seeing him a few years ago it was more than a few years ago now. That was in the 80s, before he was still alive.
Right.
But those men, I'm telling you, those men who came out of that construct, if you saw them on the street, Chief, you knew they were somebody, because there was an aura about them.
Right.
There was a deep spiritual aura about them.
Right.
It's nothing like knowing who you are.
Absolutely.
And when people know who they are, it's just all over them.
Right.
And they had no idea they had no doubt about who they were or who the Most High was. They had absolutely no doubt, and you could feel it.
Right.
You could feel it.
So.
And that's how it was.
So when we spoke earlier, you spoke about Rabbi Smalls. Can you explain a little bit about Rabbi Smalls and what he meant to the community and to Rabbi Matthew and to the
Rabbi
commandment keeper?
Right hand man to the end. He was like me too. He was a twin. He had a twin sister.
Right.
And I have a twin brother.
Okay.
And he had a twin sister. His family was original commandment, those elders of blessed memory.
Right.
And he and his sister was part of the congregation, and he always was very loyal. They just had kind of like a real connection where, like you said, they balanced each other.
Right.
They balanced each other very much because Rabbi Smalls was very spiritual and very, he didn't say a lot. He did a lot.
Okay.
But he didn't say a lot. Rabbi Matthews, like I said, Rabbi Matthews was tough.
Right.
And a lot of people, why some of the falling out came, because Rabbi was brutally honest. and I mean literally, brutally honest. And he would say what he thought.
Right.
If he thought you were a fool, he would say it.
Right.
Rabbi Smalls, on the other hand, as I said earlier, he would look at you like you were a fool, and it was almost like worse. And my father was like that too. They were kind of more on the quiet side.
Right.
I don't know if I would call it quiet, but more on the side that they didn't. And none of them. Let me tell you this: none of them suffered fools. Once they got to a certain point of learning and studying, and you came into that presence, and they were teaching. And you came up with some dumb stuff, you were done. Yeah, they didn't. They didn't suffer fools because so much was at stake. Because you have to remember the times they came through.
Right.
They came through, like I said, the Great Depression.
Right.
They came through
serious times. They came through serious times.
Serious stuff.
Right.
The Jim Crow era and stuff like that. When you walking around saying you are who you are, and you didn't have time to play with folks. Not only that, why they didn't have time to play with folks? Because they had a knowing of who they were and who God was.
Right.
And so they didn't have time to play with you if you could take it or leave it.
So, Emah,
they had a knowing.
This is very interesting because Commandment Keepers was functioning during the 60's. And in the 60's, there was like a revolution amongst black people in America. People went back to more of the dashikis and the Afrocentric, right?
Yeah,
and then the black Muslim movement rose in Harlem real strong. How did the Israelites in that time get along with the black Muslims in that time in Harlem? How was the relationship? Did Rabbi Matthew have any type of relationship perhaps like with Malcolm X or with any one of those leaders?
No.
Okay.
Absolutely no, he didn't. No, I can just say it in a simple word, no, because they understood and knew who they were.
Right.
They knew and understood who the Muslims were.
Right.
They had no animus toward them.
Right.
But they knew that wasn't them.
Right.
And they really didn't give them a whole lot of thought. Maybe some of the younger members might have been interested and gave them a look, but the older leadership just really didn't give them that much of a thought.
Okay.
Because they knew who they were as Israelites. You understand me? And they knew who God was, and they know even though the Muslims, I'm not saying who they call Allah is not God, but they had a different understanding of God.
Right. Right.
Okay, so we basically thought of it as the divine intelligence of the universe. We didn't think much about it. Okay. What they thought and believed is what they thought and believed, and we knew who we were in relation to the creator of the universe. So we didn't give it much thought, and we were still on the journey. So
I get it.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get it.
So we didn't give them. We thought that they would maybe eventually they would catch up.
Right.
We didn't. Let me put it that way.
Right, because obviously you guys were there in Harlem way before they even came along.
Way before, but there was no disrespect. You might have had some individuals who were. I'm not talking about the commandment keepers, but who came and just found out. Thought they were Muslims or whoever, and might have kind of gave us a look at who they think they are. But we really didn't pay them that much attention, except that we were glad that anybody who wasn't calling themselves a Christian was all right with us.
Okay.
Okay,
because Christianity was like the number one enemy.
Yeah, if they weren't calling themselves Christians, we said, well, at least but they had to catch up. But at least they weren't calling themselves Christians. If you, are you following me?
I follow you.
That's how we looked at them. At least you weren't calling yourself Christian. At least you had evolved to that point.
What
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
well, we
absolutely.
had no kind of competition like that because we weren't really paying them that much mind, except to say, as I said, that at least you're not calling yourself a Christian, so you're okay.
Right.
All right.
Another question. I just had it right at the top of my head, and I just forgot it.
You're breaking up. I didn't hear your question.
I said I had another question. I had it. Oh, now I remember the question. What happened to all those families that you said it was over 500 people at one time coming there on a consistent basis? I gathered that a lot of the families were from Harlem. What happened to a lot of those families, and where are they now?
That's a great question. I can't answer it, but I'm going to tell you why it's a great question. I told you, I had seen Cantor Brown. Cantor Brown was at Colbany. He was a Cantor. He came from Commander Keenan, but he was a Cantor at Colbany, Bet Israel.
Right.
I read it to his wife in 2009 because we had given an elders brunch to phenomenal women in 2000. I'm so glad we did that too, because a lot of those the female elders are still alive. And Candace Brown's wife asked the same question because she hadn't seen us in many years.
Right.
And she said, "Well, where is everybody?" And that's the $64 question. Now, Mother McLeod, who was one of the founding members too, I ran into one of her grandchildren.
Right.
I was on 110th Street, and he was looking at there's a synagogue there, a European synagogue,
right.
And he said some white woman looked at him like, what are you looking at this for? And he happened to just run. We would stand, my sister and I, by the school there, the Columbia school, and he was so annoyed. He said, she just don't know who I am. So he had said that he was an Israelite, and I said, well, who's your family? Because we went by family groupings,
right,
primarily. Most of them just kind of, if the elder ones, the elders who I call the elders of blessed memory, the founding members, most of them are deceased, and
right.
Everybody just dispersed and went where. Some of them, I suspect, some of them are still like that young man. He's still in law, but some of them is just
in the world.
Yeah, with white Jews in the world, and
right.
Like my nephew, my entire family. We have 5 generations in this way of life. My entire family is in law, but you don't see them. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
Once in a while, they'll come. Like first of all, we all do Pesach together, and we all do Yom Kippur together and stuff like that. But as far as coming out and connecting to a congregation and stuff, they just don't.
Right.
They just don't. They lie a lot about it. Okay. When I say lie, when we do certain things about their coming, just like for this centennial celebration, you know what I mean?
Right.
Well, a couple of my nephews are coming in from out of town, but you know, they're in law, but they kind of like don't connect the way we did. I think back in those days, those people had to stay connected as a community. Right. That's how they grew, and that's how we survived as a community. But everybody was kind of doing their own thing.
Right.
Yeah, and when I say their own thing, they do more. They don't eat pork. They'll tell you that in a minute.
Right.
They don't eat pork. They know who the Most High. They born knowing who the Most High. You can't listen. Once you know, not believe. Once you know who the Most High is, and you born that way, and you go up that way, you can't forget that. You can't change that.
Right.
That is always with you.
Absolutely.
You know, that's the beautiful thing about that. Once you know who the Most High is, you have no doubt. I don't care if things go wrong in your life. I don't care what happened. The Most High is just the Most High.
Absolutely.
So when people are raised up like that, they don't stray from that, but they stray from everything else, going with false and everything else.
Right.
You know?
Right, absolutely.
So that's how that is. So that's what I think. A lot of people are the elder people who held the line are gone. And the other generations, that's another reason why a lot of people know our family. Because our family pretty much, you know, stayed Of course, Rabbi Dorme's family, Rabbi, you know, they
Right.
in-law. Well, they got some issues why you don't see them. So
Right.
you saw them at that one event.
Right. I
You
saw it
some
at the
of
one
them
event. Right. I see.
at that one event, but they have a reason why you don't see them.
Okay.
Because you know we're still in a fight for one thing.
Right.
And like I said, I'm not getting into any of that tonight because
Right.
I'm trying
Right.
to keep everything positive.
I get
positive.
it.
But you know some things because
Yes, I
we
do.
talk on a personal level.
Yes, I do.
So they don't deal with certain things. Period.
Right.
You know, but forgiveness is a beautiful thing too. I tell them all the time too.
Right.
Because my sister Joan Rebecca, she just passed away. She used to always tell them. She said everybody is not aware. You can't be angry at the entire Israelite community because many of these people have no idea
Right.
what happened, and they're not aware. So she used to try to tell them that because they kind of looked up at her as an aunt. You know,
Right.
my sister Joan Rebecca.
Right.
And she was always tell them that. She said, you know, a lot of people don't have a clue. They don't know, so you can't be mad with the whole community.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah, that's true. So, you know, I think we got a lot of, unless you wanted to add something else, I think I think we got a lot of the history out tonight. I know we could probably do this again. If I have some more questions, I know you're a reliable source, and I know that is a beautiful thing for me to be able to speak to you and to be able to find out about our lineage, because ultimately many of us, and I'm not saying all, but many of us, this is our lineage, whether you
Right.
know it or not.
Or
You
not.
know, if you know the history, like, and I've been repeating this lately. I said, you know, we come from Rabbi, you know, it starts with Rabbi Matthew, then Rabbi Yirmiyahu. Rabbi Yirmiyahu taught Cohen Levy. Cohen Levy
Right.
taught Cohen Michael, Moreh Mishael. He taught Prince Zippor. He taught all these men that went on and taught other men. You know what I'm saying? And that's where that's our lineage. You know,
That's your lineage. Yes.
and my lineage comes from two different schools, because you have the Prince Zippor element, but then you have the Ben Azaking element, which didn't directly come from Rabbi Matthew, but
Right.
I do have a lineage through Rabbi Matthew, and it's important for our children to know and not to shun our history and where we come from.
Very foolish to do that.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense, because from one generation to another, they not going to be able to carry on the tradition and the legacy that the man left behind, because he was a visionary. You know, it's a lot of things that Emah left out. Like, he bought land out in Long Island for Israelites to be able to bury themselves and for Israelites to be able to live in. You know, these are all things that we don't know. We don't know about. He was a visionary. He came with a mission plan, and he gave his last bit of effort to the movement and to the struggle. So for that, he has to be acknowledged and he has to be respected. First, all glory to the Most High, as we know. But he was a servant of Yah, you know, and he was somebody who woke God people up into the truth of self and to the knowledge of self, and that has to be commended, and that has to be put in perspective. So
that's right. That's right.
Emah, I really go ahead.
No, I said the thing is, whoever taught you, you need to be able to go back far enough to find out who taught them. But some people don't want to. Like I said to you earlier too, and this is not to be disrespectful, but most people in this way of life, and this is for the brothers and the sisters who calling themselves, you know, like relating to the Jewish world.
Right.
I'm not mad at you, long as you were serving God. But the point is, no white person came and told you who you were.
That's right.
They better really know that.
Right.
So if for no other reason, they need to respect Rabbi Matthew.
Yeah, they came into one of our places, got knowledge, and then went running over there, and then the Caucasian had to accept you. You know what I mean? He had to accept you, but you learned that your foundation was from over here.
That's right. That's right. And we shouldn't be afraid of that. But I guess you know what that is. I tell you, Chief, some of that is we have been through so much. I can forgive some of them because we have been through so much as a people. So we tend to be like that. Oh, this is mine over here. I don't know what they're doing over there. But just like I was trying to tell you about the Muslims, we weren't mad at them, but we just knew that they had to catch up. We knew what they knew, and they weren't worshiping Jesus, so they was okay with us.
Right.
But, so our people have to understand that they don't have to feel any animus toward that you weren't cursed. You didn't break the code. You did not break the code.
Right. Right.
And you have to understand that and don't be intimidated by that. And embrace that.
Absolutely.
You understand? And that's what I have to say about that. You embrace that. And I look at those churches. I'm going to say this, and then I'm going to be done.
Right.
I look at that church that those people in South Carolina with Emmanuel, where those people got shot down. That church is over 200 years old.
Right.
Not the exact edifice. The first edifice was burnt down, because Denmark Vesey and those people were plotting revolution in somebody's soul. And they burnt that church to the ground. And you see that church was raised again over 200 years. We need to stop. And we need to understand legacy.
Absolutely.
Okay? I just want to say that. We need to understand and stop being insecure about it. Because that if that church is 200 years old, those people who thought to bring that back and bring it to what it is today, they weren't the original people.
Absolutely.
Okay? But there was that seed there, and they understood legacy.
Right.
Those Christians down in South Carolina, and that church where they went up and shot up those 9 people, that church is 200 years old.
Wow.
Okay? We have to begin to understand that and be proud that we can have a touchstone for something that's 100 years old, okay? Because we were black before the 60s. We knew we were black. We weren't starting to call ourselves black in the 60s. Don't care what we wore. We knew we were African.
And on that note, Emah, I appreciate you coming on with us tonight. And if anyone else comes up with anything else, I'm going to get, I know during that week you're going to be busy, but I'm probably going to get a chance to sit down with you on camera and maybe during one of those events where you just laying back and I just want everybody to know that me and Emah share a birthday, August 6th.
And tell them we will cut you.
Yes, we will cut. We got similar spirits. She works hard and keeps working. That's the same kind of spirit that I have. So once we found out that we shared birthdays, Emah took a liking to me, and we from there has been to the moon. So I thank you once again, Emah, for joining us.
You're very welcome.
And
you're very welcome.
If I need anything else from you, I'm sure that I could give you a call.
Okay, do that.
Shalom,
okay,
shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.